So we all thought Luthen was the guy pulling the strings, right? The secret rebel architect, the one holding everything together in the shadows.
I share my dreams with ghosts.
But what if he wasn't? What if the person really running the rebellion was standing right next to him this whole time, and we just didn't see it? That's exactly what Andor showrunner Tony Gilroy has now confirmed. According to him, Kleya, Luthen's assistant, was actually the one leading the operation since day one. Not as his partner, not as his apprentice, but as the real boss.
You agreed to it!
I'll let you talk me into it.
You're becoming insufferable.
Now, if you're like me, that completely reframes how you see every scene she's in, and it raises a huge question. Was Kleya the true mastermind behind the rebellion? Today we're diving deep into her story, her tragic origins, her rise through the shadows, and the subtle power plays that make it clear this was never just Luthen's rebellion. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Kleya Marki might be the most important Star Wars character we never saw coming.
Kyber, Krennic, Urso.
Galen, Ursa, Galen.
Before we jump in, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to catch more Star Wars coverage just like this, then you're in the right place. Now, without further ado, let's get into it.
It's a weapon. Okay, they're building a weapon, a super weapon. Everything we've been chasing, that's the answer.
Okay.
Alright, so to really understand why Kleya being in charge is such a big deal, we need to go back to where her story actually begins. Because she's not just some mysterious figure operating from the shadows, this all started with something deeply personal. Back in Season 2, Episode 10, we learn that Kleya comes from a planet that was devastated by the Empire just a year after Order 66. Her home was one of the first places to fall, her people were wiped out, her family was slaughtered, and somehow she survived. A lone child stowing away on a ship to escape the carnage. And it's there, in that desperate moment, that she meets Luthen. At this point, he's a shattered soldier, someone who most likely served under the Republic and now finds himself completely at odds with what the Empire is becoming. Disillusion, drifting, but something in Kleya snaps it out of him. Anyways, together they escape, and that moment becomes the foundation for everything they'd go on to build. Now, they didn't just team up to survive, they made a promise that they'd do something real, that they'd fight back, and it's easy to forget now that we've seen Luthen as this commanding strategist, but this rebellion didn't just start in some big war room or with a Mon Mothma Senate speech. It started in the wreckage of a ship with two broken people just trying to make sense of the galaxy. And even then, Kleya wasn't just a kid Luthen saved. She was sharp, she was stubborn. You can see it in that flashback moment where they're struggling to sell an artifact. Luthen was ready to take the lowball offer and move on, but Kleya refuses.
Sold, but no smile.
She holds the line, and in the end, they walk away with way more than they were originally offered. You see, that's not just stubbornness, that's instinct. That's someone who already understood power, even when she had none. And now here's where it gets interesting, because if she was already that self-possessed back then, what does that say about the version of her we come to meet years later, calmly running intelligence and even giving Luthen orders? And could it be that she wasn't just moulded into a revolutionary, but that she was always meant to become one? So yeah, Kleya already had the fire, that was clear, but like any weapon, it needed to be sharpened, refined. And that's exactly where Luthen came in. He had the experience, the political instincts, the vision to see what was possible. While Kleya had the drive and the instinct, she needed someone to help her channel that into something that would last. Something that could grow into a real rebellion, and that's what makes their dynamic so compelling. It wasn't a master and apprentice thing, it was two people broken by the same system, building something together from the ground up. Luthen taught her how to move in secret, how to think long term, how to play the game without ever showing your cards.
All you know now is how much you hate.
But it was Kleya who gave that vision its edge. Over time, what started as simple survival, selling antiquities just to stay afloat, turned into something far more dangerous. The Coruscant Gallery wasn't just a front, it became a hub, a sanctuary. Command post for one of the most dangerous rebel cells in the galaxy, hiding in plain sight. And the entire time, Kleya was there, organising contacts, managing intel, and doing the kind of dirty work Luthen couldn't always be seen doing himself. And that raises a question: if you strip away the speeches, the ideology, and the theatrics, who was really keeping the rebellion alive in its earliest days? Because what we're seeing isn't someone being led, it's someone quietly stepping into power. But this is where it gets interesting. This whole idea of Kleya being more than just Luthen's second in command, it's not just speculation. Tony Gilroy, the actual creator of Andor, came out and confirmed it himself in his own words. Kleya has been in charge of everything. She's been the boss from the moment they met. And that completely flips the script, because if that's true, then everything we thought we knew about Luthen being a mastermind,
A thief and the middleman. Axis.
it shifts. He might have had the vision, the strategy, the speeches, but he was never calling the shots alone. In fact, if Gilroy is to be taken at his word, then Luthen was following her lead all along. Which makes you wonder, all those moments where Kleya seemed cold, calculating, even dismissive, were those signs of someone overstepping or someone quietly running the operation while letting Luthen take the spotlight?
We have to take it out at the party.
And if we can't,
We should be prepared.
And if she really was the one in control from the start, then how many decisions that went on to shape the rebellion were actually hers? Now, this is where the power dynamic really comes into focus, not in theory, but in the way things actually played out on screen. Take the Chandrila wedding. Luthen wanted to stay, to maintain appearances. Kleya didn't wait for his approval. She told him she was leaving, not asked, told.
I can't leave. You have to get it right.
Because she needed long-range comms to monitor the Cassian situation. That wasn't someone following orders, that was someone giving them. And then there's the Davos Skolden situation, the moment where the forgery was discovered in his office, which meant his entire collection was being sent up for reappraisal, which would expose the bug they put on one of the pieces they sold to him. That wasn't Luthen's plan, that was Kleya's. And when things started to spiral, it was clear who was cracking under the weight. Luthen admitted he didn't know how to fix it, that they were drowning. Meanwhile, Kleya, calm, in control, already figuring out how to use the party to quietly remove the bug and clean up the mess. You really start to notice it. For every moment Luthen breaks, it's rare but it does happen, when the burden of rebellion begins to overwhelm him. Kleya doesn't just hold the line, she tightens it, and that's what really stands out. With Vel, with Lonnie, with Bix, even with Cassian, Luthen's always the one with the answers.
You'll have brought a medallion that was missing from a shipment.
The one controlling the board, but with Kleya, he defers, he listens, he reacts. So if he's the mastermind, then why does he look more like the muscle when she's around? And maybe the real question is, how long has Kleya been the one calling the shots? And how much of the rebellion's early success is actually down to her? Now look, Gilroy created the show. I'm not here to argue with him, but let's be real. If Luthen wasn't important, none of this would have worked. He's the one who gave Kleya the space to become who she was meant to be. He taught her how to move in the shadows, how to play the long game, how to bury her hate deep and lose battles in order to win the war. She might have been the hidden navigator, but Luthen built the ship.
So calm here. Peaceful.
Can I tell you how much it pleases me to hear that?
You take him out of the equation, she doesn't survive the Empire's first wave. She doesn't end up in that gallery on Coruscant. There is no rebellion without Luthen. But here's the thing, he wasn't doing it alone. And maybe that's the point Gilroy was making all along. Because when you think about the early rebellion, we always imagine the big players, the Mon Mothmas, the Bail Organas, eventually the Leias. But Kleya was in the room before all of them, quiet, unseen, running the show from behind the curtain.
I don't know, which is why I'm telling you to keep the signal open.
So here's the question, if she's this influential and it's flown this far under the radar, who else is out there? Who else helped build this thing and never got the credit? And what if Kleya's story isn't just about power, but about the people history tends to forget? So anyways, at the end of the day, this was never about Kleya versus Luthen. It was never about one being more important than the other. This was a partnership built in tragedy, forged through survival. Luthen may have lit the spark, but Kleya kept it burning. She didn't just follow orders, she carried the rebellion forward in ways that Luthen never could have done on his own. And that's what makes this so powerful, when everything's on the line, when Luthen returns to the gallery to wipe the slate clean and ends up getting caught. It's Kleya who steps in. She doesn't hesitate, she doesn't flinch, she does what has to be done. She takes Luthen off life support so the ISB can't get to him, and then makes sure the message gets to Yavin.
It's a weapon. Okay, they're building a weapon, a super weapon.
She protects the network, buries their secrets, and finishes what they started together. Luthen lit the fire, but Kleya, she made sure it didn't go out. So maybe the real twist here isn't just that Kleya was in charge, maybe it's that the rebellion, as we know it, wouldn't exist without both of them, one to build it, the other to protect it. And it makes you wonder how many more figures like Kleya are hidden in the shadows of this galaxy. Quiet operators who never make the history books, but without them, none of it works. So yeah, do you think Kleya deserves more credit for starting a rebellion, or was Luthen still the true architect? And what other Star Wars characters are out there like her? Key players who never got the spotlight. As always, drop your thoughts, theories and wilder speculations down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out our look back at Andor Season 2 and how it affects the rest of Star Wars, both past and present. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one, and may the Force be with you.